everybody, it's David with No Chaser, and I'm sick, but not sick like as in sick, dude. I'm super sick. Do people still say that? No, I'm a little bit under the weather, but honestly, one thing I'm grateful for is like having gone through withdrawals and all that stuff so many times, like being like just having a head cold or having the sinus problems or stuff like that is like nothing, compared to withdrawal. So it's like I don't feel great, but it's just like this is a walk in the park. Anyways, in referring to my last video when I talked about like waking up and deciding that I'm not going to let my narrative of, I feel depressed, I don't feel like, it, getting up today or anything like that, like having that immediate sort of like depression come over you and like not letting the narrative take over your day. I've been working on that, and it's been helpful. I've been very mindful of like how I've been starting and what I've been telling myself as far as like the thoughts that I'm trying not to identify with, where it feels like this is gonna suck. But anyways, that's been going good. I think it's important to be mindful of like what you tell yourself, like what the commentary, the narration, whatever you want to call it, is going on in your head that you may not know about. But today's topic is the idea of, I struggle with this, and there's still times where I do struggle with this notion or fear rather that I'm not going to make it, in a sense. I'm not going to be able to completely live my life sober. Like I just, I don't know if any of you out there have ever, like, if you're struggling right now and it just feels like I'm never going to be able to live completely. I'm never going to be clean, or I'm never going to be sober for the rest of my life. Like that's just, it's not possible. That's an idea that I had struggled with for a very long time. I just, there's other factors that come into it, like when you just wallow in that nice self-pity. Like, I think of it as like what's it called? Like the lazy river. And you just wallow in the self-pity river. You're just like, man, I can't. My brain's broken and my affliction's special, even though I share so many different problems that are exactly the same and I have the same patterns of behavior with others. I'm special in my problems and I'm not going to ever be able to be fixed. Okay, by the way, sorry. I don't mean to make fun of you if you've had those thoughts. I've had those thoughts, just the idea of, I know sometimes they phrase it as terminal uniqueness, where you just think that you are especially just broken in a way that you can't be fixed. And that's just your addictive mind telling you that, because what it wants you to do is to not think you can be fixed, because then you won't work on it. You won't try to fix it. That means you get to keep drinking or using. Sorry if I ever offend anybody. Like, I don't mean to say that. That's just like how I imagine things in my mind as the way I talk to myself. Self-pity in a way is this comforting thing where, which sounds weird, like comforting. It's this thing where it pulls me down and allows me to just like embrace this sort of like acceptance of not, fighting off the drinking or fighting off like doing the right thing, or fighting off working towards recovery. And so a lot of that, the idea of I'm never going to be able to stay sober for the rest of my life. I'm never going to kick this habit. I'm never going to beat this addiction. Self-pity is a big factor in that. Fear obviously is the huge factor in that. Just having this fear of when you look back at your past and you think like, I haven't gotten it right for so long, There's times where I did find sobriety, but I still failed. I still relapsed and everything. Like, everything in my life is like, if you look at like research, if you were to just look at my history, all of it points to I'm never going to make it. Like, if I were a betting person, I would not bet on me to be able to make it. And that thought comes into mind for me as well, because it's just like, yeah, I've shown throughout my life that I haven't been able to do this thing. Like, what makes me think I'll be able to, beat this thing for good? And in a sense, that's already using the wrong type of language. I'm already starting the wrong type of fight, so to speak. Like, you don't beat this thing for good completely. It's not like a singular thing where you just, I think people hope that it is. It would be nice if it was that. If it was this one singular fight where you just go, ugh, like almost in a sense, like if it was a sort of like a battle with a disease, like a battle with cancer that you go through. But just like cancer, you can be in remission and it could come back. In this sense, it's ever present, and it's not just like a Band-Aid rip thing where you can just have even a spiritual experience that completely like changes you forever, and you lose all the obsession. Some people say they feel like they have, like they lost the obsession of the want to drink or use drugs, but they still struggle with other problems. But you are always an alcoholic or an addict, in the sense that you'll never be able to use drugs or alcohol normally. I believe that's the accepted ideal. I won't say it's for sure. Actually, I will say it for sure. I mean, come on. Yeah. I don't, I'm not going to just placate like you. How do I say this? And now I'm getting off on a tangent. But the idea that, if you just admitted you were an alcoholic and you drank alcoholically for years, like, I can't imagine there's people that have ever just gone back to drinking like a normal person, because maybe they weren't an alcoholic in the first place. Anyway, this is pointless. Anyway, back on topic. The idea that I will never be able to beat this thing, the self-defeating thought or notion that I'm not going to be able to be clean or sober. And so we get to the point of like, okay, what combats that? Like, what sort of mindset can you have? What sort of thing can you lean on to say, despite all the evidence showing that I've like failed in this regard and I won't be able to beat this thing? What comes to mind? What can you do for that? And I mean, you could do recovery, obviously, just you attempt to try it again. But if you're looking for hope or some sort of like why bother, in a sense, like not why bother, but you feel so self-defeated. One thing I remind myself is that life is so unpredictable in a way that there's so many times I thought if like I had this job or I had this type of relationship, I would feel this way. I would feel accomplished and complete. And I've had those things and I didn't feel that way. Or there's been many times where it's like, if like I worked in just like a warehouse and I had to move back in with my parents and I was like single again. I was in my 30s and I would feel like absolute, like terribly garbage person. But I've been in that position before and I don't feel that way. Like the idea that you predict how you'll feel about your life, what you'll think about your life, the idea that you know how things are going to be is something that I think that at least for me has like pushed me in that lie of believing that I can never reach sobriety for the long term, for the rest of my life. It's just this idea that I've always thought these things where I made assumptions that they were just like set in stone, but so many times life has proved me wrong. So many times I've been in positions, in places where I was in like circumstances, but felt completely different about it, you know? And that's one thing that is beautiful about life, is that the way it can expose the fact that you don't really, even though you know yourself best, that doesn't mean you know yourself completely. And you could find things like faith again, or you can fall in love if you've never believed in that. That can occur, actually. You can discover talents or abilities that you never thought you'd have. You discover strength, especially strength, that you never thought was possible. That's one thing that I've seen in the recovery community, is that so many people have discovered strength and a sort of grit to them that they never thought they possessed. And so many people have said like they've discovered lives that they never thought they would ever have, and in different ways too, by the way. Not just that, like, I never thought I'd have a good life and I have a good life, but I have this life which is strange to me because I have different things that make me happy that I didn't expect. So basically, you know, what you expect in life and how it works is not always true. So that's the one big thing I would say you can combat that idea of like, I'll never be able to live without drugs and alcohol, is that you don't know that for a fact, because life is so unpredictable in the way that your mind and your perspective of things can change, and the way your attitude about things can change, and the way you can change. That's one beautiful thing about it. So with that note, like, subscribe, do all this stuff, or don't do the stuff. That's cool. I co-host a podcast called Shoeless in South Dakota. It's about addiction, mental health, also other stuff too, existentialism. We just dropped an episode where we did an interview with just the everyday type of person who's started a new journey of recovery from alcoholism. It was really great. So check that out. It's on every major podcast player thingy you can do. And then other than that, be well.